Welcome back to my channel. This time we are going to be having a biology class, and it will be a continuation of our previous video on transport system, and we are going to be looking at the last part, which is the heart. Now, considering the heart on the board, we are having the image of the heart. So I'll give the functionality of the heart, what the heart is made up of, and how the heart is nourished. All right. So what is heart? Heart is simply a conical muscular organ that is about the size of the clenched fist. That's talking about the size of this our clenched fist. All right. And then it is primarily involved in the pumping of blood around the body. That is its primary duty. All right. And if you should look at the heart very well, you tend to know that the heart, it beats about 72 times per minute. 72 times per minute. And the sound of the heartbeat goes in the pattern of lob dub. Lob dub. That is the sound that it makes when the heart beats. All right. So if you look at the heart, it is actually positioned in the thoracic region, talking about the chest region, and also behind the sternum, which is the breastbone. All right. And then it is in between the lungs. You know that in human we have two lungs. That's a pair of lungs, the right and the left. All right. So let's see how the heart works. How does the heart works? But meanwhile, you should know that the heart is made up of a muscle, and the muscle is called the cardiac muscle. That's the only muscle that is found in the heart, and it is an example of involuntary muscle that is stripped and striated. All right. So the only muscle that is found in the heart is the cardiac muscle. The study of everything pertaining to the heart is known as cardiology. So everything that has to do with the heart is concerned with the heart is credited to cardiology, which is a branch of medicine. All right. So let's see how the heart functions. Considering the image on the board, we are having the left part and the right part. So you have to be very attentive now, because there are so many things that I'm going to be saying on this particular image. Now, previously, in the previous video, I said that we have the blood vessels. And how many are they? There are three. We have the arteries, we have the veins, and we have the capillaries. Remember I said that the arteries are involved in carrying oxygenated blood away from the heart, while the veins are involved in carrying deoxygenated blood to the heart. Then the capillaries, they form a network connecting the arteries to the veins in the form of arterioles to the venules, which are smaller sized arteries and smaller sized veins respectively. All right. So looking at the left part of the heart, the left part of the heart is concerned with carrying oxygenated blood. Oxygenated blood. Then the right part of the heart is concerned with carrying deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood. So left oxygenated, right deoxygenated. And when we say oxygenated blood, we are referring to oxygen-rich blood, oxygen-rich and carbon dioxide deficient, all right, or carbon dioxide deficient. Oxygen-rich and carbon dioxide deficient, while that of deoxygenated blood is oxygen deficient and carbon dioxide rich. All right. So you know that usually there are two gases that are constantly being exchanged in the alveoli on the lungs. And what are the two gases? Oxygen and CO2. So when when the blood is rich in oxygen, it is called oxygenated blood. Then when the blood is deficient in oxygen, it's called deoxygenated blood. Taking a closer look or view of the heart. The heart is actually enveloped or covered by a two-layered membranous bag which is called pericardium. Pericardium. All right. Now, this pericardium, in between the layers, is filled with what is called the pericardial fluid. The pericardial fluid. Now, this fluid helps to minimize or reduce friction that is generated by the pumping action of the heart. All right. So that's its primary work. Then, like I said, looking at the heart, we have the left and the right. There is something that separates the heart into the left and right parts, and it is called the interventricular septum. The interventricular septum. What this septum helps to do is that it does not bring about interaction between oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood, meaning it does not allow the mixing action of both bloods. So that's the work of the interventricular septum. In the human heart, we have four chambers. We have the upper two chambers and the lower two chambers. The upper two chambers, they are called auricles. Then while the lower two chambers, they are called ventricles. Of course, we're having the right and the left auricles or the atria, and then we have the right and the left ventricles, all right, which are the lower ones. So looking at this diagram, we have the left auricle, we have the left ventricle, we have the right ventricle, we have the right auricle, then we have the vena cava, then we have the aorta, and we have this wall that is actually surrounding the heart. All right. So how does the heart works? You have to be very attentive now. Now, the pulmonary veins, I can start from the left or I can start from the right, whichever one, but I would decide to start from the left. The pulmonary veins, they are responsible for carrying oxygenated blood from the lungs. So they pick up oxygenated blood from the lungs, which are the pulmonary veins now, and then they transport the oxygenated blood into the left auricle. When the oxygenated blood flows into the left auricle, then it enters, the left auricle gets contracted in that process because it means that the left auricle will now be filled with blood, so it becomes contracted. All right. That process of contraction is called systole. Systole. When you hear the word systole, know it has to do with the contraction of the heart. But one thing that you need to know about the systole is this: most especially the contraction of the ventricles. When you hear systole, though we know it's contraction, but most especially it has to do with the contraction of the ventricles. Then when you hear the word diastole, diastole, diastole means the relaxation of the heart, most especially the ventricles. So like I said, pulmonary veins will pick oxygenated blood from the lungs, transport it to the left auricle. From the left auricle, the blood will be drained into the left ventricle. But if you should carefully look at this part, there is actually a valve here. This valve that separates the left auricle from the left ventricle is called the bicuspid valve, or you can call it the mitral valve. All right. Now, this valve opens to allow the passage of blood from the left auricle into the left ventricle. So what's now the primary duty of this valve? Is actually to prevent the backflow of blood and also to permit the flow of blood in only one direction, meaning that the blood flows from the left auricle in one direction and enters into the left ventricle. Then it closes to prevent what? Backflow of blood. All right. Now you see, This bicuspid valve is actually held and attached to the walls of the ventricle by cord-like tendons called chordae tendineae. Chordae tendineae. Chordae tendineae. Alright, these are actually cord-like structures that attaches the bicuspid valve to the walls of the ventricles. The moment the blood gets to the ventricle, the left ventricle, what happens? It will be directed to the aorta. The aorta. Now, the aorta is actually the largest artery in the body. All right, the largest artery in the body is called the aorta. And where is it found? It is found in the heart. So when the blood now flows into the aorta from the left ventricle, remember that the blood is still oxygenated. So it flows into the aorta. It is from the aorta that you now have different branches of arteries that will be picking up their respective oxygenated blood and transporting them to their different body organs that may be in need of them. All right. So now, if you should consider, look at the left ventricle very well. You tend to know that the wall here is thicker. In fact, it's even considered to be the thickest. So you are asked a question in your exam that what chamber of the heart is the thickest? It is actually what? The left ventricle, considering this space. This is like the wall. And why is it considered to be the thickest or having the thickest wall? It's because of the fact that it is from this part that blood flows into our different body parts, talking about systemic blood circulation. So it takes blood to different body parts. All right. So that's the reason why there is need for it to be very, very thick in order to withstand the volume of blood that enters into it. All right. So now the blood will be flown into the aorta. From the aorta, we have different branches. The one that will pick oxygenated blood and take it to the head, the face, and the brain. The one that will pick up oxygenated blood and transport it to our arms, forelimbs, our hind limbs, the ribs, talking about the sternum, talking about the gut, talking about our genitals. So there are different arteries that are involved in picking up oxygenated blood and transporting them into these different body organs. All right. I'm going to treat those ones though. But based on what you have seen, that the aorta carries oxygenated blood and takes it to the different body parts. Let me just quickly touch some aspects of those arteries that will be picking up oxygenated blood from this guy, the aorta. Now, when you hear renal artery, this guy carries oxygenated blood to the kidneys. All right. When you hear when you hear hepatic artery, this one takes blood, oxygenated blood to the liver. When you hear carotid artery, this takes blood, oxygenated blood to the head, the face, the brain, and the neck. All right. The head, face, brain, and neck. Then we have the phrenic artery. This one takes blood, oxygenated blood to the ribs. Then we have the genital. Talking about the genital arteries, ovarian and testicular, takes blood to the ovaries as well as the testes. All right. Then we have subclavian. This one takes oxygenated blood to the forelimbs and the shoulders. Forelimbs and shoulders. All right. Then we also have others like the femoral, the iliac that takes blood to the hind limbs and all that. That's oxygenated blood. So you can pause the video and take note of all this. All right. Now, when these different body organs must have finished utilizing the oxygen content in the blood, then what now happens? The blood now gets deoxygenated, meaning we now have much of carbon dioxide than oxygen. So what will happen? All those things are enlisted here. their respective veins, with the exemption of carotid, because we don't have carotid vein. What we have there is jugular. So jugular veins will now pick up deoxygenated blood from the head, the face, the brain, and the neck, and transport it back to the heart. But meanwhile, veins, remember, they are involved in picking deoxygenated blood. So when all these different veins, renal vein, hepatic vein, and the rest of them, when they pick up this deoxygenated blood, where would they empty it to? Now, they don't just rush to the heart and, empty it there. No, what they do is that there is a coordinated, what's it called, veins that picks up this deoxygenated blood from all these different small, small veins coming to drop in their blood there. All right. Now, looking at this guy, inferior vena cava and superior vena cava. If you look at the way they are positioned, inferior is beneath, down. Superior is above, up. Now, the lower part of the body, the veins there, will pick up their deoxygenated blood and drain it into the inferior. I'm talking about the trunk, the lower part of the body. All right? They pick up and drain it into this inferior. While the upper part of the body, those veins there, they will drain theirs into the superior vena cava. What I'm trying to say is that the veins that drains deoxygenated blood from the head, the face, the brain, the shoulders, and the forelimbs, they drain it into the superior vena cava. One thing that you need to know is this: superior vena cava is also called anterior. Anterior, in case you come across something like this. Then while inferior vena cava is also called posterior. So one thing that I used to remember in mind is this code, PISA, meaning posterior is also called inferior, while superior is also called anterior. All right. So when these bloods are drained, the oxygenated blood, when they are drained into this vena cava, what happens? Now, this vena cava will not drain this blood into the right auricle. Remember, the right part of the heart carries the oxygenated blood. So it will be drained into the right auricle. Then from the right auricle, there's still a valve here, just like the valve that you have in the left. This valve here is called the tricuspid valve. All right, and it performs similar function as the bicuspid, meaning that it helps to allow just a direction, one movement, one flow, one directional flow of blood, meaning the blood moves in one direction and it does not permit the reverse, meaning it prevents the backflow of blood. Just like I said, they are also attached to the walls of the ventricles, and in this case, the right ventricle. So, what attaches them? The cord-like tendons known as chordae tendineae attaches this to the walls of the ventricles. So it opens and allows the movement of blood into the right ventricle. So the right ventricle will now transport this blood into the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery. So it is this, there's a valve here in the pulmonary artery that is called the pulmonary valve, or you can call it semilunar valve. This same valve is also found in the aorta. It's called aortic valve. So both of them can be regarded as semilunar valves. All right. So just like what valves does, that they tend to what? To prevent backflow. The moment this valve opens, it allows the passage of the deoxygenated blood into the pulmonary artery. So the pulmonary artery will now carry this deoxygenated blood into the right and into the left lungs. So when it picks this deoxygenated blood into the right and the left lungs, then the right and the left lungs will now carry out another cycle of reoxygenation. Remember, on the surface of the lungs, there are alveoli that are involved in gaseous exchange. So the moment the deoxygenated blood gets to the lungs, what happens? Now there will be a cycle of reoxygenation, just like gaseous exchange. Take my CO2 and give me oxygen. Then when the blood now gets reoxygenated again, it will now be picked up by the pulmonary vein and continue another cycle. All right, so that's just basically how the heart works. So you see, these two things that I just explained now, the movement of oxygenated blood, the movement of deoxygenated blood, they are occurring at the same time, simultaneously. It doesn't happen that one is going first, then the other. No, constantly they are moving and they are moving, they are going. That's why you see that the heart works around the clock Throughout the lifespan of a man, the heart always functions and always works. All right. So that's just the overview of how the heart works. But there is something that you need to take cognizance of. Blood is moving into the heart, entering into the aorta, to other body parts, and then returning back to the heart. We now have different types of blood circulation. We have the pulmonary blood circulation, and we have the systemic blood circulation. Pulmonary blood circulation and systemic blood circulation. Now, what does pulmonary blood circulation mean? When we talk about pulmonary blood circulation, we are referring to a blood circulation in which it has to do with the lungs. All right, it has to do with the lungs, meaning the movement of blood from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart. That is pulmonary. All right. Then while systemic blood circulation is simply the movement of blood from the heart to other parts of the body, excluding the lungs. All right, excluding the lungs and back to the heart. So that is systemic. All right, pulmonary is heart, lungs, heart. Systemic is heart, other parts of the body, and back to the heart. Then there is actually a brief kind of blood circulation that is called coronary blood circulation. You see, this blood circulation is a brief kind of blood circulation that nourishes the heart. It's primarily involved in nourishing the heart. And how does it nourish the heart? Now the thing is this, it's just like there is a saying, let me just go in the pidgin format, that now where person dey work, na im e for dey chop. What does that mean? It means that the heart works, it helps to pump blood. So it still needs to benefit from the pumping action, all right, to feed itself. And by what means does the heart feed itself? Is from the coronary blood circulation. This is what happens. From the aorta, there is actually coronary artery there. That coronary artery picks oxygenated blood from the aorta and then transports it into the contractile cells of the muscle, the walls of the heart, and then nourishes the heart with oxygen-rich blood as well as nutrients. You get the point now? So assuming this circulation is not there, there will be nothing to nourish the walls of the heart. And when that happens, it can result in heart attack. That's why you see that when there is a blockage on the coronary artery, it can lead to heart failure or heart attack. So the moment the contractile cells of the heart, that's in terms of the muscles, have already utilized the oxygen content in it, becomes deoxygenated, then the coronary vein will now carry the deoxygenated blood and transport it to the right auricle, all right, the right auricle, and then it joins the pool that I've been explaining all this while. So that's it. Then you are asked a question: are you aware that the heart found in most vertebrates and mollusks, they are actually called myogenic heart? Why are they called myogenic heart? Because their heartbeat is actually initiated by the heart, meaning it is the heart that initiates the heartbeat. All right, so it is not under the influence of the nervous system, it is actually on its own that it brings about the beating action. All right, so that's myogenic heart. Then what initiates the heartbeat in the heart of humans? It is called the SA node. What's SA node? Is called the sinoatrial node. Sinoatrial node. Another name for this guy is called the pacemaker. 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 All right. That's what initiates heartbeat in heart. All right. So with these things that I have just dropped, I hope I've been able to, explain the fundamentals of how the heart works. What did I say? Pulmonary vein picks up oxygenated blood, transports it to the left auricle, from the left auricle to the left ventricle, from the left ventricle to the aorta, from the aorta to other body parts. When they have utilized the oxygen, then what happens? They will empty it into the vena cava. Vena cava drains the blood into the right auricle, that's the oxygenated blood. The oxygenated blood is drained into the right ventricle, from the right ventricle to the pulmonary artery, and from the pulmonary artery back to the lungs. So what can you pick about what I just said now? Pulmonary artery is the only artery that carries the oxygenated blood. Remember I said arteries generally they carry what? Oxygenated blood. But pulmonary artery carries the oxygenated blood. That's the only artery that carries the oxygenated blood. Remember I told you guys that veins they carry deoxygenated blood. But pulmonary vein Pulmonary vein is the only vein that carries what? Oxygenated blood. Alright? That's the only vein that carries oxygenated blood. So do well to go through this video over and over and over again for you to understand the concept very, very well. All right. So you are here to be a subscriber to this channel or a follower. You can give it follow and also invite your friends to also benefit from this. For those writing exams, forthcoming exams, maybe you're writing JAMB exam, you're writing WAEC exam, or other exams, this channel will be of help to you. Do well to stay glued to it as more videos are yet to come. Thanks for watching.